Have you ever wondered if the biblical prophecies written centuries ago could be fulfilled in our generation? What if some of them were about to come true very soon? In this video, we will explore 4 striking prophecies from the book of Isaiah that could be fulfilled in the coming years, revealing signs and events that connect history, current times, and the end times. Get ready to discover surprising details that will make you look at the Bible with new eyes and reflect on what God has planned for the world. Have you ever wondered who Isaiah really was and why his prophecies remain so relevant even today? Isaiah was not only a prophet in ancient times, but a messenger of God who conveyed visions and warnings with astonishing breadth. He lived in a critical period for Israel, facing corrupt kings, foreign invasions, and a nation that often strayed from God's ways. His messages combined judgment, hope, and revelations about the future of the people of Israel and the world. The historical context is key to understanding his prophecies. Isaiah wrote during a time of political and spiritual crisis, when Israel and Judah faced threats from powerful empires like Assyria and Babylon. Amid these tensions, God used Isaiah to warn the people about the importance of obedience and justice, but also to reveal future events with remarkable detail. His visions encompass not only the restoration of Israel and the coming of the Messiah, but also global judgments and transformations that could be fulfilled in the end times. Isaiah's spiritual significance lies in his ability to connect history with prophecy. Each message has a dual purpose: to teach life lessons and prepare humanity for future events that will fulfill God's will. Studying his prophecies today allows us to recognize patterns, signs, and warnings that may be manifesting in our generation. Understanding who Isaiah was and the context of his messages equips us to interpret prophecies correctly and prepare ourselves spiritually and mentally for what is to come. Have you ever wondered if the prophecy about Israel's return and the nation's restoration described in Isaiah could be happening right before our eyes? This topic is not only fascinating from a historical perspective, but also holds deep spiritual and prophetic significance. Isaiah spoke of a nation that would be scattered among the peoples, face judgment and hardships, but ultimately be restored and return to its land, fulfilling a divine plan that transcends time. Understanding this prophecy helps us interpret current events in Israel and their relevance to the end times. In Isaiah chapters 11 and 66, we find passages describing Israel's return from the nations, the reunification of its people, and the restoration of its land. Isaiah predicts not only a physical return, but also a spiritual and social rebirth, where the people will come back with renewed faith and a clear purpose in God's history. These words were not only for his time, but look forward, anticipating events that could be fulfilled in our generation. The dispersion of Israel throughout history, from the Babylonian invasion to the modern diaspora, shows that these prophecies have been active for millennia, awaiting the moment of their ultimate fulfillment. Today, the return of millions of Jews to Israel and the reconstruction of the modern nation seem to align remarkably with these predictions. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 marked a historical milestone that many interpret as a partial fulfillment of Isaiah's words. However, the prophecy also speaks of a complete restoration, not only political but spiritual, where the people recognize God's guidance and reconnect with their ancestral heritage. This suggests that we are living in a critical stage in fulfilling this millennia-old vision, and every political, social, and spiritual event in Israel takes on deeper meaning when observed from a prophetic perspective. Moreover, the prophecy is not limited to the physical land, but also describes Israel's influence on the world. Isaiah speaks of a nation that, once restored, will be a light and guide for other nations, demonstrating the divine purpose of its existence. This is reflected in Israel's political, technological, and cultural relevance today, as well as its role on the international stage. Every advancement, challenge, and conflict can be interpreted as a step within a greater divine plan, pointing toward the final fulfillment of the prophecy. From a spiritual perspective, Israel's return also symbolizes the rebirth of faith and reconciliation with God. Isaiah emphasizes that physical restoration must be accompanied by a spiritual awakening, where the nation acknowledges God's authority and guidance in both collective and individual life. This calls for vigilance and spiritual preparation, not only for Israelis, but for all believers seeking to understand the end times. The prophecy serves as a reminder that historical and political events are not accidental, but part of a divine design unfolding according to God's will. It is also important to consider the signs that may indicate the prophecy is being fulfilled in stages. The massive return of Jews to Israel, the consolidation of Jerusalem as the capital, and recurring regional conflicts can be seen as indications that we are approaching a crucial moment. The Bible speaks of a time when Israel will be tested, face challenges, and need to demonstrate faith and obedience, fulfilling a central role in the eschatological narrative. Observing these historical and contemporary patterns allows us to recognize the correlation between Isaiah's words and current reality. Furthermore, Israel's restoration has a global spiritual impact. The Bible indicates that the nation will serve as a beacon for other nations, teaching lessons of justice, faith, and hope. This means that what happens in Israel affects not only Israelis, but humanity as a whole, reinforcing the idea that we are living in a prophetic time where every event can have spiritual and worldwide significance. Restoration, therefore, calls us to reflect on our own spiritual life and align ourselves with the divine principles that Isaiah proclaimed centuries ago. Finally, understanding this prophecy helps us live with awareness and purpose. Observing history and current events in Israel through Isaiah's perspective strengthens our faith, develops discernment, and prepares us for the end times. Israel's restoration is not only a historical fact, it is a reminder that God has a plan unfolding in history, and every generation has the opportunity to recognize it and participate spiritually. In conclusion, the prophecy about Israel's return and national restoration is one of Isaiah's most impactful, combining history, spirituality, and contemporary events in a single message. The partial fulfillment of this prophecy is already evident in the creation of the state of Israel and the return of its people, while its full realization is still awaited in spiritual and global terms. Observing these events with discernment allows us to better understand the end times, strengthen our faith, and prepare for what is to come, remembering that history and prophecy are intertwined in a surprising and revealing way. Have you ever wondered how Isaiah's prophecies about the coming Messiah could be closer to fulfillment than we imagine? Isaiah not only anticipated the arrival of a Savior for Israel, but also described signs and events that would mark his ministry and impact on human history. Understanding these prophecies is key to interpreting current times and recognizing how modern events may reflect what Isaiah announced centuries ago. In Isaiah chapters 7, 9, and 53, we find detailed descriptions of the Messiah. His miraculous birth, life of service, sacrifice, and eternal influence. Isaiah speaks of a child born of a virgin, called the Prince of Peace, whose authority and justice would transform the world. These words were not only partially fulfilled in Jesus' birth, but also point to a future fulfillment in his return, according to Christian eschatology. The precision of these descriptions, given hundreds of years before their historical fulfillment, demonstrates God's faithfulness and prophetic vision. Jesus' birth in Bethlehem and his earthly life were a partial fulfillment of Isaiah's words. From his teachings, miracles, and sacrifice to his death and resurrection, each event reflects the prophecy's accuracy. However, Isaiah also anticipates a future return, a time when the Messiah will come not only to redeem Israel, but to establish justice and peace across the earth. This directly connects with the signs believers should observe today, spiritually preparing for his return. Isaiah's prophecy does not only concern past history, it also describes the Messiah's global impact. Chapter 11 mentions that the wolf will dwell with the lamb, symbolizing the peace and reconciliation established when Jesus reigns. This indicates that his influence transcends borders and cultures, and that the end times will be marked by a spiritual and moral awakening, reflecting his justice and divine leadership. Current global events, from conflicts to spiritual movements, may be seen as signs aligning with these prophetic expectations. Moreover, Isaiah mentions specific characteristics of the Messiah that are important for recognizing his work: humility, compassion, sacrifice, and direct connection with God. His life is an example for humanity and a spiritual guide for those seeking to live according to God's will. Every action and teaching of Jesus fulfills Isaiah's description, and his future return promises to complete the prophetic work of justice and redemption on a global scale. Recent events in Israel and the world also invite careful observation. Concentrated conflicts, spiritual tension, and the pursuit of global justice can be considered part of the signs Isaiah anticipated. The Bible emphasizes that the end times will be accompanied by challenges preparing humanity for the Messiah's intervention. Observing these signs does not mean living in fear, but with discernment and spiritual readiness. Interpreting these prophecies also requires understanding their dual fulfillment, partial in the past and complete in the future. Isaiah prophesied events fulfilled during Jesus' life, but also anticipated a broader eschatological fulfillment. This dual fulfillment allows believers to connect history with current events and understand that the Messiah's work did not end with his earthly life, but continues until his promised return. Spiritually, the prophecies about the Messiah serve as guidance and warning. They remind us that justice, peace, and reconciliation will not be achieved by human means, but through divine intervention. They also emphasize the importance of personal preparation. Living with faith, obedience, and vigilance is essential to recognize his return and participate in the prophetic work. The connection between historical and current signs strengthens our faith and keeps us alert to events that could mark Isaiah's final fulfillment. The impact of these prophecies is also reflected in global culture, theology, and spirituality. Jesus' life and teachings have influenced millions for centuries, and the anticipation of his return continues to shape how believers interpret history and modern events. Expecting his return, based on Isaiah's words, motivates humanity to reflect on actions, values, and spiritual purpose. Finally, understanding the prophecy about the Messiah's coming helps us see history and the present from a divine perspective. Every historical event, conflict, and spiritual sign can be interpreted as part of a greater plan, pointing to the fulfillment of the justice and peace Isaiah promised. Observing these patterns allows us to strengthen faith, live purposefully, and prepare for the end times, recognizing prophecy as an active guide connecting past, present, and future with remarkable precision. In conclusion, Isaiah's prophecy about the coming Messiah combines past, present, and future, offering a clear vision of how God acts in human history. Jesus' birth and life fulfilled part of this prophecy, while his promised return points to full completion. Observing current signs allows us to better understand the end times, prepare spiritually, and live with faith and hope, remembering that every sign, event, and teaching is part of a greater divine plan unfolding before our eyes. Have you ever wondered how the global judgments and changes Isaiah prophesied could manifest in our generation? His words not only describe historical events, but also anticipate situations that seem reflected today. Isaiah spoke of wars, conflicts, calamities, and social transformations, serving as signs of the end times, showing how humanity would face crises, testing faith, ethics, and spiritual readiness. Understanding these prophecies allows us to interpret current events from a biblical and spiritual perspective, strengthening faith and discernment. In chapter 24 of Isaiah, there are references to disasters affecting the entire earth with consequences for nations, leaders, and people. The prophecy describes a world convulsed by conflict, imbalance, and divine judgment, where humanity confronts the consequences of disobedience and selfishness. While some events may seem natural or political, Isaiah emphasizes that they are part of a broader plan where God's justice and intervention manifest tangibly in history. Current global wars and conflicts can be seen as a reflection of these prophecies. Tensions between nations, political crises, and territorial disputes show patterns Isaiah anticipated centuries ago. These conflicts affect not only those directly involved, but the world, altering economies, displacing populations, and creating uncertainty. From a prophetic perspective, these situations remind humanity to reflect on conduct, morality, and relationship with the divine. In addition to conflicts, Isaiah prophesied significant social changes. Chapter 5, for instance, speaks of a society turning away from justice and righteousness, where corruption, violence, and disobedience prevail. Modern tendencies toward immorality, selfishness, and disregard for ethical principles can be seen in unjust policies and global crises. These patterns show how Isaiah's warnings reflect our world today, and how humanity faces tests requiring discernment, faith, and spiritual preparation. Natural disasters and extreme weather also align with Isaiah's warnings. Earthquakes, floods, and droughts can be interpreted as signs accompanying the end times, reminding us of the world's fragility under divine authority. Isaiah emphasizes that these events are not mere accidents, but part of a process of judgment and purification meant to awaken humanity and prompt reflection on its relationship with God. The link between natural events and prophecy underscores the need to remain alert and spiritually prepared. The impact of these judgments and changes extends beyond the physical or social to a profound spiritual effect. Isaiah's prophecy shows that humanity will be called to recognize its need for God, strengthen faith, and act with obedience and justice. Those who pay attention to the signs, study Scripture, and live according to divine principles will find guidance and protection during times of trial. Spiritual preparation becomes a shield against confusion, fear, and despair, accompanying prophetic events. Furthermore, the global judgments and changes announced by Isaiah also open the door to hope. While events may seem devastating, their purpose is correction, teaching, and guiding toward justice and reconciliation. Prophecy not only warns of punishment, but also offers a path of restoration and peace for those aligned with God's will. Humanity has the opportunity to learn from these events, grow spiritually, and prepare for a future where justice and faith prevail. Modern signs, from international conflicts to social movements and natural phenomena, must be interpreted with discernment. Isaiah teaches us not to take events lightly, but to analyze them within the context of prophecy and God's will. Every war, crisis, and global change can be seen as a reminder that the end times are underway, and spiritual preparation is essential to face what is coming. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more content like this. That way, you'll always be updated on our upcoming videos. Now, let's continue. Interpreting these prophecies also requires understanding the times and history. Isaiah combines immediate warnings for his era with visions of a distant future, showing how humanity must learn from experience and anticipate what has not yet occurred. Current events in the world can be read in light of this perspective, offering clarity on history's direction and divine intervention. Vigilance, faith, and obedience become essential to avoid being caught off guard by prophesied judgments and changes. Finally, global judgments and changes call for personal reflection. Isaiah speaks not only about humanity in general, but also about the individual responsibility each person has toward justice, morality, and faith. Prophecy invites us to examine our lives, strengthen our relationship with God, and act with prudence and obedience. Spiritual preparation, living with integrity, and maintaining active faith are essential steps to face the end times with hope and clarity. In conclusion, Isaiah's prophecies about global judgments and changes show that the world faces tests requiring discernment, vigilance, and spiritual preparation. Current conflicts, disasters, and social transformations reflect patterns Isaiah anticipated centuries ago, reminding us that history is intertwined with divine intervention. Being attentive to these events, interpreting them correctly, and strengthening our faith allows us to face the end times with confidence, hope, and preparedness, recognizing that every global change is also an opportunity to learn, grow, and draw closer to God. Have you ever wondered what signs we might be seeing today, indicating that Isaiah's prophecy about future peace and justice is about to be fulfilled? Isaiah not only spoke of judgments and calamities, but also prophesied a time when humanity would experience restoration, peace, and justice. A period where God's work would manifest fully in the world. Understanding these prophecies allows us to recognize the signs pointing to that future and prepare spiritually and mentally to participate in it. In Isaiah chapters 2 and 11, a world transformed by justice and divine leadership is described, where nations will learn to live in harmony and conflict will give way to reconciliation. The prophet mentions that God's judgments will be established in righteousness, and that peace will be so profound that predator and prey will live together without fear, symbolizing the complete restoration of creation. These passages not only represent a spiritual ideal, but also anticipate tangible changes in how humanity relates and governs itself. Today, we can begin to see indications of this prophecy in reconciliation movements, peace agreements, and global efforts for social justice. Though still imperfect, these advances reflect the prophetic trend toward a world where equity and peace are more than aspirations. They will become reality. Isaiah reminds us that these changes will be led by divine intervention and by people guided by principles of faith, justice, and compassion, highlighting the importance of living according to biblical values while awaiting full fulfillment. Additionally, this prophecy has a profound spiritual component. The peace and justice Isaiah describes are not limited to the absence of physical conflict. They also involve a spiritual awakening in humanity. Recognizing God as a just guide and judge will be central in this era of restoration. For believers, this means strengthening faith, practicing obedience, and acting with integrity in all aspects of life, actively contributing to the manifestation of this prophecy in the world. It is important to note that the prophecy does not imply immediate peace or a world permanently free of challenges. Isaiah describes a gradual process where the end times will be marked by trials, warnings, and opportunities for humanity to choose between justice and disobedience. Recognizing the signs of this process helps maintain hope and perseverance, understanding that each advance toward justice and reconciliation brings us closer to full fulfillment of the prophecy. The influence of this prophecy is also reflected in global culture and ethics. Movements for social justice, human rights, and reconciliation among peoples can be considered echoes of Isaiah's vision. These efforts show that humanity can align with divine principles and contribute to realizing a more just and peaceful world. Every action based on compassion, equity, and righteousness reflects partial fulfillment of the prophecy, reminding us that active participation is essential for Isaiah's vision to become reality. From a personal perspective, the prophecy invites reflection on how we can live according to these principles daily. Future peace and justice are not just distant expectations. They begin with individual decisions and actions. Practicing honesty, empathy, justice, and reconciliation in our relationships and communities prepares us to participate in the prophecy's fulfillment and allows us to experience in advance the restoration Isaiah announces. Moreover, the prophecy about future peace and justice offers hope amid a world facing conflict, inequality, and global challenges. It reminds us that despite difficulties, there is a divine plan leading humanity toward harmony and righteousness. This hope is not passive. It calls us to live with purpose, discernment, and active faith, trusting that efforts toward justice and reconciliation are part of a greater design God is executing in history. In conclusion, Isaiah's prophecy about future peace and justice shows a world transformed by divine intervention, where nations and individuals live in harmony and justice prevails. Current signs, from social progress to spiritual awakening, reflect that this vision is closer to fulfillment than we might imagine. Observing these signs strengthens faith, encourages righteous living, and allows active participation in manifesting a future of reconciliation and hope, reminding us that every just action and ethical decision brings us closer to the prophecy's fulfillment. Have you ever wondered how you can apply Isaiah's prophecies in your life today, beyond simply knowing them as historical facts or future events? Understanding these prophecies is not just an intellectual exercise. It's an opportunity to transform our spiritual life, decisions, and relationship with God. Isaiah not only prophesied future events, but also conveyed practical teachings on living with faith, obedience, and discernment amid uncertain times. The first step in applying these prophecies is recognizing the importance of spiritual vigilance. Isaiah emphasizes that the end times will be full of challenges and confusion, and those who are not attentive could be caught off guard. This means cultivating a life of constant prayer, Bible study, and reflection on personal conduct. Vigilance is not only observing the external world, but keeping our hearts and minds aligned with God's will, discerning the signs of the times, and acting according to faith. Another key aspect is practical obedience. Isaiah's prophecies emphasize that restoration, peace, and justice depend on people's faithfulness to divine principles. Living with integrity, justice, and compassion not only prepares us for the end times, but also makes us active witnesses of God's work in the world. Every ethical decision and righteous action strengthens our spiritual readiness and contributes to manifesting the justice and peace Isaiah describes. Furthermore, participation in a faith community is essential. Isaiah shows that humanity does not face the judgments and changes of the end times alone. Being part of a spiritual community allows sharing teachings, praying together, and supporting one another, strengthening collective faith. This interaction provides guidance and protection and helps correctly interpret current events in light of prophecy, avoiding confusion and misinterpretation. Discernment regarding external events is also crucial. Observing conflicts, tensions, and global changes with a biblical perspective allows informed decision-making and prudent living. Isaiah's prophecies call us to analyze reality with spiritual eyes, understanding that events are not mere accidents, but part of a divine plan that invites reflection, preparation, and faithful action. Finally, applying these prophecies involves maintaining active hope. Although the end times may present challenges and crises, Isaiah's vision ensures that justice and peace will prevail. This hope allows us to face events with confidence, strengthening faith and guiding actions toward good. Living with active hope means being aware of history's direction, recognizing God's signs, and acting as instruments of His work on earth. In conclusion, applying Isaiah's prophecies in daily life involves spiritual vigilance, obedience, community participation, discernment, and active hope. It is not only about knowing prophetic events, but living so that faith is reflected in concrete actions, preparing for the end times, and contributing to the manifestation of justice, peace, and reconciliation Isaiah announces. Every decision, action and prayer becomes a step toward a life aligned with divine purpose. In summary, Isaiah's prophecies show a path of hope, preparation, and spiritual transformation. Every event, sign, and teaching invites us to strengthen faith and live purposefully in these times. If this video helped you better understand the power and relevance of these prophecies, subscribe so you don't miss future analyses. Like it to support this content, and comment which of the 4 prophecies impacted you most. Your participation helps grow our community of faith and knowledge, and motivates us to continue sharing deep biblical teachings.